Cache-a-maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Along with Daryl W4, I'm the bad cop, and we're back for another heaping helping of the GeoGearHeads hospitality.
Well, for Beta.31, we were planning to talk with Brand.44 and how they took on the GeoMate Jr., but we had trouble connecting with them out at the Outdoor Retailer show, so we hope to have them on in a couple of weeks.
Next week, we'll be joined by the crew from the Geocaching Podcast for the first of a couple of shows about moving from or to smartphones and GPSRs. So next week, we'll be starting off with the move from a smartphone to a GPSR. And we'll be recording a little bit later than normal. So if you plan to join us either through the Google Plus Hangout on Air or through YouTube, look for that stream sometime around 6:40 p.m. Pacific or 9:40 p.m. Eastern.
We'd love to get your feedback, especially those stories of woe if you were a geocacher who started out with a smartphone and added the GPSR to your caching. You can email us at geogearheads@cacheamaniacs.com. Drop us a note on the Facebook, Google Plus, or Twitter feeds. Best of all, though, would be to call those into the Cache-a-Maniacs voicemail line at 206-350-3647 so we can play them back in your voice on the show.
Now, tonight we're going to have another one of our unique randomized shows. That's when we cover a few seemingly random topics without any real connection between them. Why don't we kick that off with something that's been bugging you a bit lately, Daryl?
Yeah, one of the things that has really started to bother me a little bit on social media is people who are posting the full links to, that you'll see in the address bar to caches and things like that, including trackables. Well, geocaching.com and Groundspeak had created this coord.info URL shortener service, which really does make it a whole lot better. And that's coord.info. And if you just go to that page, it gives you the option to, or it gives you the instructions on basically how to do it. So it's really easy. All you have to do is, the coord.info / the GC code to go to a cache. If it's a waymark, which, that's for waymarking.com, and I don't know too many people who do that, but all you have to do is the WM and then what it is. And the trackables, you use the TB code, which is really helpful because then you don't have to worry about anyone getting the wrong info and getting the actual trackable out of it. So that's really handy. It's just coord.info / TB1234 or whatever that TB number is. So that's really handy. And even cooler yet is if you go to the geocaching.com page for the cache, it really is neat in that you can just go to any cache and pick up that code and just copy and paste it. It creates that URL right there at the very top of the page. If you just click on the little arrow next to the GC number, it pops down with that code. So it's that easy. There's nothing to it.
Yeah, and there's no possible way of getting a typo. You just, when you click that arrow down, it automatically highlights that shortened URL for you. So all you have to do is hit copy and you're ready to go.
Yeah, it really does make a handy way to share that, and then you just copy it, paste it into Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus, and it's right there. And the same thing actually works with the travel bugs. You'll get that TB number up in the upper right corner, and you click on that little arrow, and it does exactly the same thing there. So really, really handy way to do that. You don't have to worry about misformed URLs, which I've seen quite a bit of lately, where people will try to go and plug something in, and all it takes is a line break in the wrong spot, and that whole URL gets hosed. So by using that coord.info, you save yourself and anyone who might be following you a lot of effort.
It's a whole lot easier.
And it's a whole lot shorter if you're using something like Twitter with 140 characters. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Exactly.
Now, we did actually mention in Google Plus that we were going to have to change to the Randomize show, and one of our listeners, Jeff, we'll just call him because we don't have his geocaching name handy, asked us to talk about things that you want to keep in mind when placing your first geocache.
Well, let me tell you, Sonny, things have changed from when I first placed mine so many years ago. Now, without a doubt, you want to choose a clear container.
Oh, absolutely.
That would be the first thing I start with. Start with a clear container that you can see through.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Even before that, I'd probably say make sure you get the permission and find out what the limits are for that particular landowner or manager, because there are some who don't want the Tupperware period, don't want the lock and locks. They will mandate that it has to be a stronger container that's scent proof or whatever, because they've had problems with that. So you want to get with them and make sure you know what it is. But in most cases, almost every land management group that I've run into does require that it be translucent on at least 3 sides.
On 3 sides, okay.
Yeah, that just makes sure that you can see through it. So if you had like one side and the top and the bottom open, that's fine. So it makes it, that way you still have some room for camo if you need it.
Exactly. Well, inside the first cache, I would definitely put notepad with Write in the Rain paper. So if your cache does get damp, that log isn't going to turn to mush so quickly. It still will, but it'll take a bit longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that kind of stuff, throw a plastic, Ziploc type bag, and in that, throw a desiccant pack out of your vitamins, or anytime you get a new backpack or something, those things almost always come with the desiccant bags as well. And just throw something like that in there with the logbook, so that if some moisture does get in there, the desiccant should help to absorb it. Now keep in mind, once it does, that desiccant pack is pretty much toast for these disposable desiccant packs. You're just going to want to throw those away and get a new one. But if you're really into it, it used to be that you could, past tense, I don't think anyone does anymore, but you could actually go to a camping store and get kits where you can make your own desiccant bags or desiccant tins, and those you could actually bake to resurrect and give them the, so that you're baking the moisture out, and then you could reuse them. So that was a really nice feature, but when you get into these disposable ones, they're not built to do that. They just turn into mush.
Yeah, don't even try to put it in your oven and dry it out. Just throw it out and get another one.
Unless you want to create a big mess and possibly a fire.
Yeah, well, that's always an exciting way to meet new friends. Another thing we should mention is if you're placing your first cache, really consider using a GPSR. Now, I'm sure this is something we'll talk about in our next show or two. Use a GPSR to get your coordinates. Don't trust your cell phone or Google Maps.
No, and definitely make sure that you're going back and doing it a couple of times. You don't want just the one read. Now, D. Vixen is also watching live and said that Cut Flower drying kits also have the reusable desiccants, so that's another good source for it. And that reminds me, another one that I've heard many times is the, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a special type of cat litter that is basically a desiccant. And if you want to do that, you can pick it up cheap in huge bags and make your own little containers of the desiccant. And where I actually heard this tip was actually for something that we should probably have a little conversation about, which is what to do if you drop your GPS or cell phone in the water or toilet. And that's one of the big tricks is to take this kitty litter or instant rice that hasn't been cooked, of course, and throw it in there in a Ziploc or in a airtight container like a lock and close it up. So That's a good one. Now, she had also said that the first thing she learned about placement was to never reuse a container that has food, that had food in it.
Yes.
The local wildlife can still usually smell it even after it's been cleaned and take care of it. Now, she also has chatted back to us, essentially, and said that it's the crystal cat litter that is the desiccant-style stuff.
Very nice. Crystal cat litter. So you can buy that in 55-pound bags. Fill your 55-gallon drum half full with it, and you'll be good for life.
Yeah, well, actually what I've heard a lot of people do is take some nice fabric and sew up little pouches and create them, and though, you know, if you get something that's a good quality fabric, you can even bake that stuff, I would imagine.
I would think so.
Yeah. So getting back to coordinates, I think it was that we were talking about.
Yes.
You want to go and get a couple of sets of coords. Don't just count on one. If your GPS has the averaging feature, and a lot of the smartphones will do that too, take advantage of that. One of the things I typically try to do is multiple reads from multiple GPSRs.
On multiple days.
Yes, and you always want to try to do multiple days. Now, unfortunately, I've gotten lazy with that, and because the GPSRs have gotten so much better. So I typically don't do the multiple days. You know, if I'm out there with my 60 CSX or my 62 or my PN40, and I've got more than one of those, and they're coming in within a couple of feet of each other, I'll just average those two together, and that's my set of coordinates that I use. And if it looks close on Google Maps, that's it. I'm done.
Right. I bounce it off of Google Maps. I don't trust Google Maps to be, you know, the end-all be-all, but I bounce it off to make sure I'm in the neighborhood, literally in the neighborhood.
And remember that Google Maps is taking a flat image that's been distorted and trying to map it onto the sphere. So it is inherently going to be off. Now, depending on where it is in that algorithm, depends on how accurate it's going to be.
Right.
And a bunch of other factors come into it as well. But I've seen it where it is dead on, where you can't, you know, pixel for pixel, you can't tell that it's not exactly where it says it is. And I've run into other ones where you're a good 50, 60 feet off. So, you know, and that could be a GPS error, it could be map error. So don't rely on it too much, because in many cases you're going to find that it's as inaccurate as your GPS is for the satellite image. But it is a good verification tool just to make sure it's in the right ballpark and that you're not in the middle of a lake.
Right. I'll tell you one of my fail stories. I submitted the information for a magnetic geocache to Groundspeak, got approved. I went to go put it on there and didn't realize the box I wanted to attach the magnetic geocache to was aluminum. I had to go back and say, nope, don't post this. I have to fix this. So test it out first.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that's one of the other things is you want to have that cache in place before you hit that checkbox that says the cache is ready to go. You can get the listing prepped, you can get everything ready to go, but don't hit that this cache is ready checkbox until the cache is actually in place.
Ready.
And another thing, because that we're talking about first hides, is really keep an eye on your container and make sure that that's a container that will last in that set of conditions. You know, we're talking about using these transparent containers. One of the factors in some of the sunnier climates is the plastic can get brittle and crack in the sun, so that might not be appropriate for that location. So make sure that you're using a container that is going to last wherever you're putting it. You know, you can't use an Altoid tin in a very humid climate because it will rust, it will create problems, even if it is sheltered under like a lamp skirt, which is one of the really popular hides around here. It's only going to last a few months if it starts raining because it's still going to get that humidity, it's still going to rust.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff will work fine in the desert. It doesn't work up here. And you can have the same kind of stuff up here that works well here but doesn't work at all in the desert.
So look at the hides in your areas, get some ideas. You know, your first hide, you don't have to be super creative. Just get it out there, get the excitement of having somebody find it. And then on your second or third. You don't
want to be all that creative with your first hide. You want that first hide to be more about the experience. We went a little bit more creative on the first hide, and I kind of regretted it because I realized that I had to maintain it, and the maintenance on it became a little bit more than I wanted to deal with. So we ended up scaling it back a little bit. You know, the hide still ended up working, and it was a quality hide. It didn't have a problem. But we went with a theme and special logbooks and stuff like that, and creating the logbooks and putting it all together ended up being a little too much for the long haul. So try to keep it a little simple for your first hide. It's going to be your litmus test to find out what it's actually like to own that cache and to take care of it. So make sure that you're going to do something that's going to last. Make sure that the coords are accurate, and do as much as you can to make sure that it's a quality cache that's maintained and maintainable.
That's right. That's right.
Well, let's move on to another topic. And we mentioned it a while back that Apple had come out with a new podcasting app, something totally separate from the iTunes store that we've been used to with iOS in the past. And I haven't really used it because I use my own, well, I shouldn't say my own, but I use one of the third-party apps so that I could do the downloading and everything that the iTunes, or I think they called it iPod, whatever they called it, the music app, I can't remember.
As far as I know, it's just called Music.
Music? Okay. Yeah, they've changed it a couple of different times, as I recall, and it depended on which version of the devices you had. But now they have it in one app called the Apple Podcast app, and it's its own thing so that you can download it now, use it on iOS 5, and it's going to be out on iOS 6. And there's been a lot of talk about it. It came out. It was really buggy, but they have done an update to it, and you're actually now a fan of it.
Well, I've used the first one, and I was excited for it. You've got a little more control. Actually, you've got a lot more control than you do over podcasts in the Music app. And I found it, you know, I'd listen to it for 15, 20 minutes, and the thing would lock up on me. The podcast would keep playing, but I had absolutely no control over it. So it was one of those things that, you know, I listen to podcasts while I mow my lawn. That's when I get my major podcast time in. And, you know, I'd go, okay, I want to switch to the next. Well, now I've got to completely stop the lawnmower, pull the iPhone out of my pocket, you know, kill the app, restart it. It was a hassle. So when they came out with, I think it's 1.01, I didn't have a lot of hope for it, to be honest with you. But it turns out to be pretty good. It's a little more pretty than the previous app. They did some graphical changes to it, but I think well, I know it works a whole lot better. I've been able to listen to, you know, 2 and 3 hours now of various podcasts with absolutely no errors. So,
and that's very important.
That's a step up, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. And I've got to take a look at it again. I don't think I even have it on my iPhone anymore because, you know, I looked at it with the original version and said, yeah, no, I'm not going to be using this. Because I've gotten used to the workflow on my current one. I can do all my downloads and everything. And the thing that I like about using Podcaster, I think is the name of the app that I'm using, is I can actually take and reorder the podcast and put together basically the playlist on the fly, which makes a huge difference when I'm listening to it because I always want to listen to my news programs first and then shift the stuff that's not as time sensitive toward the bottom of the list.
That makes a lot of sense. I tend just to, you know, just go chronologically. Let me have the oldest one first and bang through the list that way.
Yeah, it depends a lot on what you're doing. I do a lot of podcasts. I leave them on at work all the time. You know, I'm doing news podcasts and, you know, obviously geocaching podcasts in my iPod. Yeah, but I also do, you know, some history podcasts, and those aren't, you know, any sort of time sensitive usually. You know, a couple of funnier podcasts, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, I can listen to it when I listen to it, so that gets pushed off to the back. And the stuff that's topical news kind of things, that I have to listen to first. So that's been one of my big downfalls of just about anything I've played with on the device is trying to get the order set up. And I'd really like to see more of the apps allow you to reorder the podcast playback. And still, you know, some of them you can't even automatically go from one podcast to the next unless it's in the same podcast
Right,
feed.
exactly.
It can't jump from one podcast to a different show. So that's a big problem for me too.
Yeah, it is. So now you've gotten something new you're playing with.
Yes. One of our listeners actually recommended on Google Plus that I check out the power bags at mypowerbags.com. So I got in touch with them, got a review unit of their Sling by Fuel, and it's an awesome bag. I'm not a big fan of the Sling, but after I got this bag, started playing with it a little bit, I was hooked. I actually went and bought myself the Messenger bag by Fuel and the backpack by Fuel because I just fell in love with these things. Now, they're basically just bags, good quality bags, not, awesome. I still prefer the bags by Timbuktu, but these are good quality bags with one really big cool feature, and that's they have a power supply built into them. They've got, in most of them, a 3,000 milliamp hour battery with 3 leads. You have a lead for a 30-pin Apple connector, the standard iPod-style dock connector. You've got a mini USB and a micro USB cable wired right into the bag. So you have a little pocket. You can throw in your iPod. You can throw in your iPhone. You can throw in your Samsung. Actually, a lot of the Samsung devices have weird power requirements, so do a lot of the Motorola's, so they might not work. But anything that uses a standard USB, micro USB, or mini USB should charge, including like your GPS will be powered by it. It won't charge, but it will at least be powered by the pack. So it's really handy to throw all that stuff in there, and it does support the 2 amp version of the charging. So if you have something like the iPad, it has a standard USB port right on the actual battery pack that's built into the device. So you throw that cable on there, and if you have one of the devices by Samsung or Motorola that requires a special cable, you can, that's still a USB, you can plug that right in there, and that gives you the 2 amps to charge. You plug that in for your iPad, you can keep your iPad charged up. It's got the slots for your laptop, it's got the slots for your iPad, for your tablet, whatever that would be. So it's really, really handy, and the coolest thing that really sold me on these things was that the batteries are interchangeable. So you can get the standard 3,000 milliamp hour battery. To give you an idea, on a current iPhone, it's about 2 charges. That's it. So if you've got a whole bunch of devices in there, that's not going to last very long. So they also sell a 6,000 milliamp hour battery and a 9,000 milliamp hour battery. And you can swap those out, you can get spare ones, and the coolest thing is you can charge by the battery. It has a port on the bottom so that you can actually directly charge off the USB adapter, or you can leave it in the bag, and there's a power port on the side of the bag to charge up the battery there.
Nice. So when you leave for the day, you got to remember not only to charge your devices, but to charge the bag you're putting the devices in later in the day.
Well, you don't necessarily even have to charge the devices. Just leave them in the bag and, keep your battery topped off and charge everything up. So I really like, the Sling I'm not such a fan of. I've taken it out a few times. It just doesn't work for me personally. It's a great bag. I've taken it to a lot of coffee shop kind of situations because it really does work well for that. The short trips from the car to the coffee shop, even I'll go and walk a mile to a coffee shop down the street just to get away from the cats and everything here at the home and be able to get some work done real quick at the shop. So I'll take this to those, it's really nice for that. But my messenger bag is replacing my laptop bag that I take to work every day, and that's going to be my new bag for that because I just really fell in love with the way that this just gives me options so I don't have to worry so much. I don't have to carry the charge cables and things like that with me in the bag anymore because it's got the charging built right in, and I just don't really have to worry about it. And then this backpack is going to be really nice when I go out on the trail, and I'm thinking, ooh, maybe I can actually take this thing out on some bike rides. It's probably not really a good pack for carrying on the bike because it is a little bit too big a footprint on your back.
Mm-hmm.
But still to be able to take this thing out for caching on the trails, take it for some long weekends. And you know what I was thinking today too, because I'm actually planning on going out and shooting the video for the video version of the review that I'm working on out in Marine City this weekend. And what kind of occurred to me is that the sling would be really great if I were going on a quick day caching kind of trip with a bunch of friends, kind of a power caching kind of thing, but not necessarily even power caching. But even for power caching, because you can just, when you get back in the car, top it off, throw a few extra, things in there that you might want, maybe some snacks or whatever. And it's that one nice bag that you can just pick up, grab, but it's going to be able to keep your batteries topped off on your devices while you're sitting in the back seat.
Yeah, I can see that. That would be nice. Now, does it come with the standard Edison plug, so the wall wart and a car adapter to keep that bag charged?
Well, there's no car adapter, but it does come with a power supply that's really nice. You'll have to actually go to the site and look it up and check the video when I get that done. But it's one of the power supplies where you can wrap the cable around the power supply itself. The prongs fold down into the power supply, so it just folds up into a nice little rectangular cube kind of thing. It's not a cube, but it's a nice power supply that fits right into the bag in a very compact manner. And those just plug in right to the outside. It has a water-resistant port on the outside, so that you plug that in, and it has 4 LEDs to give you the charge level, or to tell you, it gives you the charge level to tell you that it's, what the battery's currently at or where it's charging at. But it also tells you when you've turned the bag on and off, because you don't want devices like this necessarily powered up all the time, because it will leak power. So it does have an on and off, and if it does sense no draw, I think it will actually turn itself off. I haven't been able to confirm that, but it is a nice feature if it does.
That is nice. That is nice. Now I got to look at one of these. You got me wanting a new bag.
Yeah, well, I kind of saw it when the listener pointed it out, and really liked the concept of it, because it actually came from a post that I had made about Timbuktu, who's one of my favorite bag manufacturers, coming out with a Power Squid bag, as I recall. But it's a weird system of putting charging into bags and things that's more universal even than this is, but I don't really like the way that system works. This is something that I think is much more usable. It's very affordable, really. I think the cheapest of the bags on my power bag goes for about $130. But if you go to some of the third-party sites that are selling them, you can get them for well under $100, which makes them a pretty good deal. I think the messenger bag that I got was only about $80, so that's not too bad.
That's not bad at all.
I think that's less than I paid for my Timbuktu bag.
There you go. Do each one of the charging cables go into an individual pocket? So is there, a cable that's coming out goes into a pocket for the micro USB, mini USB, 30-pin?
Well, each of them are separate cables that go into the same pouch. Depending on which version of the bag you have, depends on how it works from there. The messenger bag has in one pocket the 30-pin, and in another pocket it has the USB and the micro USB. The backpack that I have, all of the cables go into the pouch on the side, and then there's a couple of pockets in there, and it's kind of like stacked. So you open up that pouch, and then you have a pocket on the outer shell and a pocket on the inner shell. So you've got really only 2 pockets probably. I'd have to actually look at that again. And in the sling, it's on the front in a nice big pocket with lots of little pouches. So it is a very usable system. Depending on which version you have, depends on how usable it is. The backpack, because it is a small pouch, is probably the least useful, but I think it's going to be perfect for what I'm doing, because I don't have to put any big micro USBs or whatever in there, I'm going to power those off the 2 amp port on the battery pack itself and run my own cable in, and it does have the management so that you can run the cable into the slot that would house, whatever you wanted it to, but it will also do the tablets and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I really like these. I got the review unit, liked it so much I went out and bought 2 of my own. It was time to replace my Timbuktu bag because the thing's like 7 years old and it's starting to come apart and give me problems as it gets tangled and caught because it's wearing out. So that one, it was definitely time to go. And then the backpack, that's just going to be so awesome. I can go for a full day and not have to worry about the batteries or anything so much.
That'll be nice. That'll be nice. Well, good. Any other topics we want to talk about?
Well, I'm not seeing anything else showing up on the notes here on Google+, so let me do one more thing and browse over to our Hangout session and see if we have anything there. Not really. So I think, you know what? I wonder if we have anyone over here. I just realized I'm going to have to cut some of this stuff out.
That's okay.
Yeah. Except it's not going to get cut out on the YouTube video, of course. And hopefully this won't kill my bandwidth. And no comments over on YouTube. All right. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for us because I don't see any more comments either on Google Plus or on YouTube. So I think that's going to do it for this week. Check the Cachemaniacs. Oh, go ahead.
No, you had it. I was going to help you out, but you got it.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647 or by emailing geogearheads at cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider making a PayPal donation through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2012 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Guess we're the Cachemaniacs.